The late afternoon sun hovered over Atlanta, giving the city a soft glow as people rushed between coffee shops, glass towers, and tree-lined sidewalks. It was a Wednesday, the kind that felt caught between the fatigue of the week and the hope of the weekend. Cars hummed along Peachtree Street, horns occasionally sounding, while the air buzzed with conversation. In the midst of that noise and movement, Jamal Carter walked at an easy pace, his hands tucked into the pockets of his tailored navy jacket. To the people passing by, he looked like any young professional heading to a meeting or returning from one. His stride held a quiet confidence, his posture relaxed but alert. Few could guess that the young black man with smooth brown skin and a calm expression was heir to one of the largest tech investment groups in the country. To anyone else, he was just another face blending into the downtown crowd. And that was how he preferred it. He had grown up in a world defined by influence, wealth, and expectations. His father, Donovan Carter, a billionaire CEO whose name appeared in business magazines and news segments, believed in shaping his son to be a leader capable of steering their empire. But Jamal wanted something more than boardrooms and finance plans. Before stepping into the primary role he was groomed for, he wanted to understand the world outside the walls of privilege. He believed that empathy and responsibility required experiences that money could not buy. That desire led him to keeping a low profile wherever he went, learning from places where people didn't treat him as the successor of a massive fortune. He wanted first-hand knowledge of people's struggles, ambitions, and flaws. It taught him patience and emotional discipline. He learned to observe before speaking, to listen even when others were too caught up in themselves to notice his silence. His afternoon walk had a destination. A new community development initiative was taking shape in a working-class neighborhood, funded anonymously by his father's company. Jamal oversaw the project personally, visiting frequently to ensure the people there felt heard and respected. Today, though, he wasn't heading to a construction site or a meeting. He was headed to a nearby cafe where he planned to meet with one of the local youth mentors involved in the outreach program. As he approached the cafe entrance, he noticed the sidewalk crowded with people leaving work early. A young black woman with long braids stepped out of the door before he could enter. She wore a simple white blouse and gray slacks, and her manner suggested she had just finished a demanding shift. She looked tired but carried herself with intention. Jamal recognized her from the community center. Her name was Tiana, and she worked part-time while studying social work. He always admired the way she spoke with compassion to the kids she helped mentor. Before he had a chance to greet her, another figure came into view. A woman in her 40s, sharply dressed in designer clothing and expensive jewelry, strode toward the entrance with swift steps and a frown on her face. Her presence demanded attention, and the crowd instinctively shifted to make way for her. Her name was Patricia Whitmore, a local influencer and wife of a wealthy real estate investor. She was well known for her extravagant lifestyle and her tendency to look down on those she believed beneath her. Patricia caught sight of Tiana and immediately scowled, as if the younger woman were an obstacle in her path. Tiana stepped aside politely, offering a small smile, but Patricia only narrowed her eyes at her. Jamal paused, sensing tension rising in the air. He had seen Patricia in social events before, though she had never spared him more than a glance. He remembered her voice, sharp and dismissive, the kind that sliced through conversations. Without warning, Patricia stopped directly in front of Tiana. Instead of passing by, she glared at her as if Tiana had personally offended her. Jamal watched closely, his instincts alert. "You blind?" Patricia snapped. "You almost bumped into me. Watch where you're standing." She leaned closer, her irritation growing. Tiana blinked, startled, then shook her head. "Ma'am, you walked right up to me. I was just stepping out. If I got in your way, I apologize." Her voice remained gentle. Several people nearby slowed their steps, sensing a scene beginning. Patricia didn't seem to care that she had drawn an audience. Instead, she raised her chin and scoffed. "Apologize? Do you think that fixes everything? People like you always claim innocence and expect forgiveness." She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "You should learn your place. Some of us are busy running real things, not hanging around pretending to be important." Jamal felt a familiar tension coil in his chest, but he remained still. He had seen situations like this before. Moments where someone mistreated another person simply because they believed themselves superior. He had learned to let the scene unfold long enough to understand its full shape before stepping in. Tiana looked hurt, yet she stood her ground. "Ma'am, I didn't do anything to you," she said softly. "You're making this bigger than it is. I'm just trying to get home." Patricia's eyes flashed with anger, as if the calm answer offended her more than anything else. Then, in a single swift movement, she raised her hand. The sharp sound echoed. People gasped. Tiana flinched as Patricia's open palm struck her across the cheek. Jamal's muscles tightened. His hand instinctively lifted half an inch before he forced it back to his side. His pulse quickened, and his jaw tensed. But his face remained controlled. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Some reached for their phones. Others recoiled in disbelief. Patricia stepped back, breathing heavily as though she had defended herself rather than attacked an innocent woman. "That will teach you some respect," Patricia declared, unaware or unconcerned about the witnesses. "Maybe now you'll understand who you're talking to." Tiana pressed a hand against her cheek, tears welling but refusing to fall. She looked around, seeing the stares and whispers, and her soul seemed to shrink inward. Shame clouded her expression, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she had been publicly humiliated. Jamal took one step forward, then paused as a black luxury car pulled up to the curb. The vehicle's door opened, and a driver stepped out hurriedly. "Ms. Whitmore," he called, "your husband is waiting at the gala rehearsal. We're behind schedule." Patricia straightened her jacket and smoothed her hair, attempting to regain her composed image. The audience around her watched with a mixture of disgust and shock, but she paid them no mind. She only glanced once more at Tiana. "Next time, move out of the way," she snapped. Before Patricia could take another step, a voice finally cut through the tension. "That will be enough." Jamal's tone was calm, but it carried a weight that made several heads turn. Patricia looked at him, ready to criticize another stranger. She opened her mouth, but something in Jamal's expression made her pause. He didn't look angry. He looked controlled, attentive, and quietly judging. "Who are you to get involved?" she asked, raising a brow. Jamal did not answer directly. "You should leave before you make things worse for yourself." His voice carried an authority she couldn't place. Patricia scoffed. "Worse for myself? You're amusing." She stepped into the car, still dismissive. "People like you should stay out of my affairs." The door shut, and the car drove away. The crowd slowly began dispersing, though several lingered to check on Tiana. Jamal approached her, keeping his voice soft. "Are you all right?" Tiana nodded shakily. "I'm fine. It just caught me off guard. I didn't expect that." "No one should have to deal with something like that," he said. especially not from someone who believes her status puts her above respect. She managed a weak smile. Thank you for stepping in, even if it was just with words. It meant something. He noticed the slight tremble in her hands. Do you want to sit for a moment? No, she replied, straightening. If I sit, I might start crying. I'd rather hold myself together until I get home. He admired her strength. I understand. Do you need a ride? I can arrange one. She shook her head. I'll catch the bus. I don't want to trouble you. It's not trouble, but if that's what you'd prefer, at least let me walk you to the stop. Tiana hesitated, then nodded. Together they moved away from the cafe, leaving behind whispers and stunned expressions. As they walked, Jamal stayed slightly behind, giving her space. He didn't try to force conversation, only speaking when she showed readiness. Things like that happen more often than people think, she said quietly. Some folks think power means they can treat others however they want. Power doesn't give anyone the right to harm others, Jamal replied. Some just forget that their actions still matter. She glanced at him. You spoke to her like you knew her. We've crossed paths, he said, not in ways that mattered. Tiana studied him thoughtfully. You handled that better than most people would. You didn't yell or shove or escalate it. You just watched and stepped in at the right moment. I've learned that reacting too quickly sometimes makes things worse. It's better to understand a situation first. Tiana nodded slowly. That makes sense. They reached the bus stop, where several people were waiting. Tiana let out a breath, grateful for a bit of distance from the earlier scene. Please take care of yourself, Jamal said. And if you ever need help, the community center has plenty of resources. I know, she said. Thank you again. A bus approached in the distance. Tiana turned toward him. Maybe I'll see you around? You will, Jamal replied with a small smile. I visit often. She stepped onto the bus, gave him one last appreciative look, and sat by the window. As the bus drove away, Jamal remained standing, deep in thought. He turned toward the direction where Patricia's car had gone. His face grew still, contemplative. He knew her type well. People who believed wealth shielded them from consequences. People who saw others as pieces on a board, irrelevant unless they served a purpose. But what Patricia did not know was that the young woman she slapped was someone far more important than she imagined. She was the daughter of Donovan Carter's closest business ally, a brilliant philanthropist whose work had shaped several national programs. And more importantly, she was family in every sense except blood. A quiet storm gathered inside Jamal's chest. He did not act on impulse. He did not allow anger to direct him. Instead, he let the situation settle in his mind, letting each piece fall into place. He had remained calm today. He had observed, listened, and allowed events to reveal their true shape. But he also understood something with complete certainty. Patricia Whitmore had just crossed a line, and the consequences of that moment would echo far beyond a crowded street. As Jamal began walking again, his mind shifted toward the next steps. The seeds of conflict had been planted. The quiet tension in the air signaled the beginning of something much larger. Unseen by most, a story of ambition, betrayal, justice, and reckoning was already unfolding. And for the first time that day, Jamal allowed a small, contemplative thought to take shape. He would not remain silent forever. Jamal woke the next morning with the previous day's events replaying steadily in the back of his mind. The slap, the gasps, the painful stillness in Tiana's eyes. Each detail lingered like a quiet echo, that refused to soften overnight. He had grown up seeing some of the worst behavior from people who believed status was a shield, but something about Patricia Whitmore's arrogance felt especially heavy. It was not only the cruelty of the moment, but the public nature of it. The lack of hesitation, the way she dismissed Tiana as though she were an obstruction rather than a human being. Still, Jamal went through his morning routine with disciplined calm. He exercised, showered, and dressed in a charcoal gray suit that blended well with corporate environments but didn't stand out too boldly. He kept his identity subtle, professionally polished, but never flashy enough to draw unnecessary attention. Today, he had several meetings downtown, most of them related to the community development plan he had been supervising. His father's company had many lines of interest, but this project was one he felt particularly invested in. On his way out of his penthouse, he checked his phone and saw a message from his father. "Call me when you have time." It was short, direct, the way Donovan Carter communicated when something significant was on the horizon. Jamal pocketed his phone and continued toward the elevator. As the elevator descended, he reminded himself that patience was not passive. Patience was a tool, a strategy, one he had learned to wield with precision. Yesterday was not the time for confrontation, but the moment for action would come, and when it did, he wanted it to be deliberate, impactful, and controlled. When he reached the street, his driver, an older man named Phil, opened the door with a polite nod. Jamal stepped inside the black sedan, his mind already shifting into work mode. "Morning, sir," Phil said as he pulled into traffic. "Morning," Jamal replied. "We're heading to the Midtown office first." "Understood." As the city passed by, Jamal let his thoughts settle. He considered Tiana's reaction to the incident, the way she held herself together even after being humiliated in public. There was a quiet strength in her restraint, something he didn't see often. She wasn't someone who sought conflict, but she also wasn't someone who invited mistreatment. She had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He wondered whether she had told her father yet. The man was known for his generosity and influence in philanthropy, but he was also protective of his daughter in a way that intimidated even politicians. If he learned what happened, the consequences could be immediate and severe. Jamal exhaled slowly. He didn't want chaos. He wanted correction. He wanted accountability. When he arrived at the Midtown office, he was greeted warmly by the receptionist and several employees who recognized him, not as the heir, but as the polite young man who often collaborated with them on neighborhood-driven projects. He walked through the open floor plan toward a glass-walled conference room where a meeting was scheduled. Inside, two project coordinators were discussing budget changes. They paused when he entered. "Good morning, Jamal," said Evelyn, a coordinator with sharp organizational skills and a deep passion for social equity work. "We were just going over the adjustments for the next quarter." "Perfect timing," added Marcus, another coordinator. They started the meeting, but midway through, something unexpected happened. Evelyn's phone buzzed repeatedly. She checked it, frowning. "Everything okay?" Jamal asked. She hesitated. "It's just, there's a video going around. Something that happened downtown yesterday." Jamal's pulse paused for a split second. "What kind of video?" Evelyn turned the screen so he could see it. There it was, the scene outside the cafe. Tiana stepping outside. Patricia approaching with that familiar scowl. The loud accusation. The sudden slap. And the shocked gasps of witnesses. Someone had captured the moment clearly. The audio, the faces, the impact, all of it was visible. Jamal sat back, letting his expression remain still even as the room buzzed with whispered reactions. "That poor woman," Marcus muttered. "Who does that in public? And why?" Evelyn shook her head. "People online are furious. Patricia is trending everywhere. She's being criticized non-stop." Jamal took a slow breath. "How long has it been circulating?" "Looks like it started spreading early this morning," Evelyn replied. "Media outlets are already talking about it." Jamal nodded. Nothing stayed hidden in the digital age, especially something as shocking as a public attack. Patricia's reputation would suffer, but that alone wouldn't be enough. Not for what she did, and not for what was coming next. After the meeting ended, Jamal stepped into a quiet corner near the windows and finally returned his father's call. Donovan answered on the first ring. "Morning, Dad." "Jamal." Donovan's tone was level but carried a subtle undercurrent of concern. "I trust you've seen the video." "I just did." "Is the young woman all right?" "She held herself together yesterday, but that doesn't mean she's fine." Donovan sighed. "Her father called me this morning. He is furious. Rightfully so, he wants an immediate response." "What kind of response?" Jamal asked. "The kind that makes sure this never happens again. Patricia's husband has already reached out to half the city trying to protect her. They're scrambling." Jamal stared out the window, watching cars move like small currents across the street. "Let them scramble. They brought this on themselves." "I want you to handle this," Donovan said. "Quietly at first, but make sure justice is done. Not the public kind. The real kind." "I understand." "Good. And Jamal?" Donovan paused. "Be smart." "I will." When the call ended, Jamal slipped his phone into his pocket and stepped away from the glass. He could feel the shift beginning, not outwardly, but internally. The conflict was no longer just emotional or moral. It was now tied to family, influence, and the unseen lines of power that shaped the city. By noon, he was back in the car, heading toward the Carter Group's headquarters. The building towered over downtown Atlanta, its reflective windows gleaming in the sun. As he entered, employees greeted him with warmth and respect, many unaware of his true position within the company. He met with several advisors, studied reports, and gathered details on the Whitmore family's business dealings. His father's influence connected to many of the same investors and contractors Patricia's husband relied upon. Their partnership, though outwardly stable, had cracks beneath the surface, cracks that could widen with the right pressure. Jamal learned that Patricia's husband, Leonard Whitmore, had recently secured a major real estate development contract. But the approval was still pending, subject to final evaluation and funding that flowed indirectly through Carter Group Holdings. A small but crucial thread. He could pull it at any time. Still, he did not tighten his grip yet. He needed clarity before acting. Later in the afternoon, Jamal visited the community center. The kids greeted him with enthusiasm, racing up to show him drawings or tell him about their day. He smiled, engaged with them, asked questions, and let their energy ground him. As he walked toward one of the offices, he found Tiana sitting at a table sorting through paperwork. She looked up in surprise. "Jamal, I didn't expect to see you today." "I wanted to check on you," he said. She paused, her expression softening. "It's kind of you to care." "I'm all right." Or, "I'm trying to be." "The video makes things harder." "It wasn't your fault," he said, no matter how many people watch it. I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. She sighed. People stare. Even here. They mean well. But it still feels like I'm being defined by something I didn't choose. You're not defined by it, Jamal replied gently. What happened says everything about her, and nothing about you. Tiana offered a small smile. Thank you. I'm just taking it one step at a time. Has your father spoken to you since he saw the video? Jamal asked. She nodded. He wants to take legal action. I told him I need time to breathe before everything becomes a storm. Whatever you decide, you have support. She hesitated. Why does this matter so much to you? Most people would have seen the moment, felt bad, and moved on. Jamal took a breath. He couldn't reveal everything yet, but he offered enough truth to reassure her. Because what she did wasn't just rude or angry, he said. It was an act of cruelty, a deliberate choice to harm someone she viewed as lesser. I don't tolerate people who use their privilege like a weapon, and I especially don't tolerate people who hurt others thinking they'll never face consequences. Tiana studied him for several seconds, her eyes thoughtful. You talk like someone who's seen this kind of thing before. I have. And you talk like someone who can actually do something about it. Jamal didn't confirm or deny. He simply held her gaze. Take care of yourself, Tiana, he said finally. And if anyone gives you trouble because of what happened, tell me. She nodded. I will. As Jamal walked toward the exit, he overheard two volunteers whispering. That's her, one said. The girl in the video. She didn't do anything wrong, the other whispered back. People need to stop staring. Jamal's steps grew steadier. The conflict was expanding. Eyes were watching. People were already choosing sides. That evening, after returning home, Jamal sat in his study reviewing files related to the Whitmore development deal. He highlighted key areas where compliance was weak and identified contractors with questionable records. Everything he found strengthened his position. He wasn't planning to ruin Leonard Whitmore's career, but he was ready to demand accountability. And if Leonard chose to protect his wife at all costs, then Jamal would not hesitate to pursue the consequences. The next morning, he arranged a private meeting with Leonard. The man agreed quickly, unaware of what awaited him. The meeting took place at a discreet executive lounge used by high-ranking business leaders for sensitive negotiations. Leonard arrived in a sleek suit, looking confident, though faint worry lines creased his forehead. Jamal, Leonard greeted. It's good to see you. I've heard excellent things about your work on the community project. Thank you for meeting with me, Jamal said. Of course. Anything for the Carter family. Leonard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. To what do I owe the honor? Jamal gestured for him to sit. We need to talk about the video. Leonard froze. His posture stiffened. Ah. That. I'm sure you understand the severity of what happened, Jamal said calmly. My wife made a mistake, Leonard replied quickly. A terrible one. She's been under a lot of stress. She acted out of emotion, not rationality. It wasn't a mistake, Jamal said. It was a choice. Leonard swallowed. I'm handling it. I've spoken to attorneys. We're willing to offer the young woman a settlement. No, Jamal interrupted. She doesn't want money. She wants respect. And she deserves justice. Leonard rubbed his temples. The public is already calling for my wife's arrest. I need time to manage this. Please understand. Patricia didn't know who she was dealing with. She didn't know that girl was... She didn't need to know, Jamal cut in. That's the point. She shouldn't treat anyone that way. Leonard closed his eyes briefly. What do you want from me? Jamal leaned forward slightly. Accountability. From her. And from you. Leonard stared at him. Silence stretched. Then Jamal continued. Your development deal is under final review. I've gone through the documentation. There are inconsistencies. They can be fixed. But I won't sign off on anything until this matter is handled correctly. Leonard's breath hitched. You're overseeing that review? I am. Leonard slumped back. The shift in power was unmistakable. You hold my career in your hands, Leonard whispered. No, Jamal corrected. Your wife does. Leonard's shoulders sagged. He shook his head slowly. What do you want me to do? Start by making her take responsibility, Jamal said. Publicly, sincerely, and legally, if necessary. Leonard hesitated. She'll be furious. Then let her be, Jamal replied. Your fear of her cannot outweigh what she did. Leonard looked down at his hands. After several long seconds, he nodded. I'll speak to her. Good. Jamal stood. And Leonard? Make sure she understands that this is the mild path. The other paths are far less forgiving. Leonard paled but nodded again. They shook hands, though there was no warmth in it. Once Leonard left, Jamal remained standing in the quiet lounge, reflecting. He did not enjoy exerting authority this way, but he understood that some conflicts demanded strength, especially when protecting someone who had been harmed. Over the next few days, the situation escalated further. Media coverage intensified. Protests formed outside the Whitmore estate. Online petitions demanded justice. Patricia went silent, hidden away, refusing to speak to anyone. Then, one afternoon, Jamal received a call from Tiana. Jamal, they're saying Patricia wants to meet with me, she said softly. He exhaled slow. Do you want to meet with her? I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to hear what she has to say. Another part of me doesn't want to face her at all. You're not obligated, Jamal said. Not in any way. I know, but maybe hearing her will help me move forward. Jamal paused. If you choose to meet with her, I'll be there. You won't go alone. Tiana hesitated. Would you? Of course. That brief moment of trust between them felt heavier than words could capture. The meeting was scheduled at a neutral location, a quiet private room in a law office. When Jamal arrived with Tiana, she looked anxious but determined. Patricia entered several minutes later. She looked different, tired, shaken, stripped of her earlier arrogance. For the first time, she seemed aware of the damage she had caused. But remorse was not guaranteed. As she sat down across from Tiana, her hands trembled. She glanced at Jamal, then quickly looked away. Silence filled the room. Tiana took a steady breath. Why did you do it? She asked. Patricia's lips parted. The question cut deeper than accusations. I don't know, Patricia whispered. I lost control. I was angry, distracted. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. I'm sorry. Tiana's expression remained steady, unreadable. Are you sorry because of the consequences? Tiana asked. Or because of what you did? Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Both, she admitted. I hurt you, and I hurt myself. My family is paying for it. I made a terrible choice. Tiana looked at her, searching for sincerity. What do you want from me? Patricia asked, her voice breaking. Forgiveness? A chance to make things right? I want you to understand that your actions have weight, Tiana said. And I want you to acknowledge that what you did wasn't about me. It was about how you treat people. Patricia nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. Jamal watched the two women, observing the shift taking place. The conflict wasn't resolved, not even close, but a doorway had opened. And through that doorway, a deeper rising tension waited. Because even as Patricia apologized, forces around her were moving in the shadows. Business partners whispered. Investors reconsidered their alliances. Rumors circulated about the Whitmore family's future, and Jamal knew things were about to intensify. He escorted Tiana out of the building after the meeting. She looked emotionally drained, but steadier. Thank you for being there, she said, as they reached the sidewalk. Always, Jamal replied. She managed a small smile. I don't know what happens next, but I'm not afraid anymore. You shouldn't be. Jamal's tone was calm, but beneath it, something sharper was forming. He sensed the shift in the air. The conflict was no longer about a slap. It was becoming entangled with business, loyalty, reputation, and consequences that reached far beyond personal emotions. As Jamal watched Tiana walk toward her bus stop, he felt the weight of the coming storm. The path ahead would only grow more complex, and he was ready to face every part of it. Jamal felt the shift long before the rest of the city sensed it. In the days following the tense meeting with Patricia and the quiet apology she offered Tiana, the air around Atlanta grew dense with rumor, pressure, and anticipation. People who once never spoke of the Whitmore family now whispered openly about their crumbling reputation. Investors who previously praised their business acumen now questioned their stability. The fallout spread through the corporate district like an unseen tide. For Jamal, the rising tension served as both warning and fuel. He moved through each day with intention, knowing every step forward tied deeper into the unfolding conflict. The slap had been the spark, but the flames were spreading beyond anyone's expectations. He spent his mornings at the Carter Group headquarters, reviewing documents, meeting with advisors, and monitoring the Whitmore development proposal. He never made threats. He never acted with malice. Instead, he operated with quiet certainty, ensuring each decision aligned with justice while preserving dignity for those who deserved it. Despite this disciplined focus, his thoughts often drifted to Tiana. She continued working at the community center, though she carried a new quietness within her. The video had magnified her presence in the public eye in a way she had never asked for, and it weighed on her heavily. Jamal visited regularly, making sure she never felt isolated or abandoned. One afternoon, as he entered the center, he found her sitting alone in a small office, staring at her phone. "You look like you're miles away," he said gently. She sighed. "They want me to speak publicly. Reporters, advocates, even some politicians." "You don't have to," Jamal replied. "Not unless it's what you want." She set the phone down and leaned back. "I don't even know what I want. I'm tired of replaying that day in my mind. Everyone keeps asking how I feel when I barely have the words to explain it." "That's normal," Jamal said. "Healing isn't something that keeps a schedule." Tiana gave a soft, appreciative smile. "You always make things sound steadier than they feel." "I'm just saying what's true." She nodded and looked away for a moment. Do you ever get tired of fixing things? Jamal considered the question. Sometimes, but not when the people involved matter. Tiana's eyes softened at that, and she looked down with a faint blush. You've helped more than you realize. Before he could respond, the center director called him into another room for a meeting. He excused himself, but her question lingered in his thoughts for hours afterward. Meanwhile, the Whitmore situation continued to unravel. Patricia refused to appear publicly, and Leonard spent most of his time trying to salvage his business relationships. The development deal hung in balance, and every passing day made recovery harder. Late one night, Jamal received a surprising call from an unfamiliar number. He hesitated before answering. Hello? A shaky breath came through the receiver. This is Patricia. Jamal sat upright. Why are you calling me? I need your help. His brows pulled together. With what? Everything, she whispered. My husband won't listen. The lawyers keep telling me to deny what happened, but I can't. I'm losing myself in all of this. I don't know what to do. Jamal exhaled slowly. Patricia, I can't fix your reputation. I can't undo what you did. I know, she said. But I don't want to keep making things worse. I thought apologizing to her would be enough, but nothing has changed. Because an apology is only the beginning, Jamal replied. And the rest isn't about saving yourself. It's about choosing a better path. She sniffed. I'm trying. I just don't know how. He remained silent for a moment, weighing his options. Start by stopping the lies. Stop hiding. Stop letting fear make your choices. I want to, she said, but I need guidance. Then talk to someone who can help you take responsibility the right way. Not me. A professional. Someone trained for this. Patricia hesitated. Will you tell me if there's still a chance for my family to recover? Jamal's tone remained calm. Recovery is possible, but not if you focus only on appearances. You need to focus on rebuilding character. The line stayed quiet until Patricia spoke again. Thank you. The call ended, and Jamal sat in the dim light of his study, reflecting. Her desperation didn't erase her actions, but it did reveal something human beneath the arrogance. Whether she would follow through was her own journey, but the larger struggle was only beginning. A week later, the city buzzed with talk of an upcoming charity gala hosted by Donovan Carter and several prominent philanthropists. The event was known for attracting influential leaders, celebrities, and investors. This year's theme centered on community empowerment, which made it especially symbolic. Rumor spread that the Whitmores were desperate for an invitation. Appearing there would symbolize stability, proof that they were still welcomed by Atlanta's elite. But the guest list was tightly controlled, and whispers suggested Patricia's name had been quietly removed. Jamal heard these rumors and remained silent. He knew the gala would play a significant role in the unfolding tensions. What he didn't know yet was exactly how. 3 days before the event, Jamal met with his father in his office at the top of the Carter Group headquarters. Donovan stood near the window overlooking the city, arms crossed, the skyline reflected in the glass. You've handled the Whitmore situation well, Donovan said without turning. Better than many seasoned executives would. Jamal nodded. I'm not finished. Not yet. No, Donovan agreed. You're not, but the next steps will be more complicated. Jamal stepped closer. How so? The gala, his father said. There are expectations. People are watching you more closely than you think. This is more than a social event. It's a statement. Jamal studied him. What do you want from me? Donovan finally turned, his gaze steady. I want you to lead. Not just react. Not just respond. Lead. Jamal absorbed the words carefully. His father's tone held a mix of pride and challenge. This was not just about business. It was about stepping into the role he had been preparing for his entire life. He left the office with a new weight on his shoulders, though it settled there with purpose rather than burden. Later that day, he visited Tiana again. She was helping a group of teenagers paint a mural on one of the center's walls. Bright colors splashed across the surface, and the kids laughed as they worked. The sight eased something in him. When she saw him, she wiped her hands on a cloth and walked over. Back again? She teased lightly. I needed some peace, Emma, he said. This place has a way of grounding me. I'm glad it does. She paused. How are things going with the Whitmores? Complicated, Jamal admitted. Their issues are bigger than the incident itself. Tiana nodded. People like that often have cracks beneath the surface. Pressure just makes them visible. Jamal smiled softly. You see things clearly. She shrugged. Life teaches you to pay attention. They talked for several more minutes before Tiana asked, Are you going to the Carter Gala this weekend? He nodded. I have to. Sounds fancy. It's mostly politics dressed as celebration, Jamal said. But it matters. I've never been to anything like that, she admitted. I wouldn't even know how to act. You'd do fine, he said. Better than most. She laughed. That's generous. It's true. Their eyes met for a moment longer than usual, and Jamal felt something shift, a gentle connection that deepened quietly over time. As the days passed, preparations for the gala intensified. The Carter estate transformed into a breathtaking display of artistry and luxury, though every detail served a purpose. Security tightened, staff rehearsed protocols, influential guests confirmed their attendance. But in the background, a storm brewed. Leonard became increasingly frantic, realizing that their reputation might crumble beyond repair. Patricia kept to herself, unsure how to step back into the world without facing judgment. On the night before the gala, Jamal received another call, this time from Leonard. We need your help, Leonard said urgently. Please, Jamal, the invitations. We weren't included. Jamal's voice remained calm. The list was curated by several committees. I'm not responsible for removals. But you could get us in, Leonard insisted. My wife needs a chance to show she's trying to change. Jamal considered this for several tasung seconds. If she attends, it'll cause attention, not all of it good. Please, Leonard pleaded. We just need one opportunity. We're running out of options. Jamal's thoughts drifted to Tiana, to the pain she endured, to the scars that weren't visible but still healing. He took a slow breath. I'll think about it. He hung up before Leonard could push further. The night felt heavy, full of decisions waiting to be made. The morning of the gala arrived with clear skies, but Jamal sensed the weight of everything pressing closer. He dressed in a sharp black suit and stepped into the car that would take him to the estate. When he arrived, the grounds were already buzzing with activity. Reporters gathered at the gates. Guests in elegant attire advanced one by one. The scent of fresh flowers drifted through the air. Inside, Jamal greeted familiar faces, accepted compliments politely, and navigated conversations with practiced ease. But his focus kept shifting to the entrance. At one point, his father approached him. You look tense, Donovan observed. Just thinking, Jamal replied. Don't think too hard, Donovan said. Tonight is about influence and presence. Show them who you are. Before Jamal could respond, murmurs spread through the room. Heads turned toward the entrance. Patricia had arrived. Whispers erupted instantly. Cameras flashed. People exchanged uneasy glances. She did not wear extravagant jewelry or a gown meant to impress. Instead, she wore a simple dress and carried herself with quiet caution. Leonard walked by her side, looking equally nervous. Jamal's pulse slowed. The rising action had reached a new height. This was the moment everything began to shift. Jamal stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching Patricia's entrance ripple through the crowd like a stone dropped into still water. Conversations faltered. Faces turned. Some people whispered while others stared openly, struck by the sudden appearance of the woman whose name had dominated headlines. Tension wound itself through the room, turning the gala into a stage poised for upheaval. Patricia walked slowly, her posture subdued, her expression tight. Leonard stayed close to her, scanning the room with anxious eyes. Their presence was unexpected, but something about the quiet determination in Patricia's steps told Jamal she came with a purpose. He waited several moments before approaching. If he moved too quickly, it would appear as though he anticipated her arrival. If he waited too long, it would suggest avoidance. The balance mattered tonight. As he crossed the polished floor, he caught glimpses of familiar faces watching him. Investors, philanthropists, politicians, reporters. Some looked curious, others concerned, and a few clearly eager to witness whatever drama might unfold. The Carter Gala had never seen a scandal walk through its doors, and certainly not one linked to the family itself. When he reached Patricia and Leonard, the couple stiffened. "Good evening," Jamal said calmly. Leonard swallowed. "Thank you for letting us in." "I didn't," Jamal replied. "The committee approved your entry earlier today." Patricia looked relieved but confused. "Then, we're not intruding?" "You were invited," he said simply. "But the meaning of your presence is up to you." Patricia nodded slowly, her eyes flicking around the room. "I know people don't want us here." "People want the truth," Jamal said. "What you do with this moment will decide whether you offer it." Before Patricia could respond, Donovan approached. Tall, composed, and commanding, he moved with the certainty of a man who understood power on every level. "Patricia," he said, with a polite but firm tone. "Leonard." Both greeted him shakily. Donovan didn't smile. "You're welcome to stay, as long as your intentions align with the spirit of this event." "They do," Patricia said quietly. "We're not here to hide." Donovan studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "See that it remains that way." With that, he returned to greeting other guests. Jamal noticed Patricia's breathing ease a little. Leonard, however, remained tense. "Thank you," Patricia murmured again. Jamal nodded, then stepped aside. "The night will unfold as it's meant to. What you choose to say or not say is your responsibility." As they walked further into the ballroom, the crowd parted uneasily. No confrontation erupted, not yet, but the air thrummed with anticipation. Reporters' cameras clicked rapidly. Influential families whispered behind gloved hands. Activists who had been invited to discuss community programs watched attentively. Jamal returned to circulating the room, But the atmosphere had shifted entirely. Every conversation felt cautious, every movement measured. He found Tiana standing near a large floral arrangement, dressed in an elegant but simple gown the Carter family had gifted her. She looked radiant, but slightly overwhelmed. "You doing okay?" he asked. She nodded, though her gaze lingered on Patricia across the room. "I didn't know she'd be here." "Most people didn't," Jamal said. "But she came. That means something." Tiana looked uncertain. "What does it mean?" "That depends on what she does next." Tiana breathed slowly, grounding herself. Jamal admired her strength. Even surrounded by Atlanta's highest tiers of influence, she carried herself with quiet dignity. As the evening progressed, Donovan approached the center stage to make the opening remarks. He spoke with confidence, honoring the guests and reaffirming the gala's commitment to community empowerment. But before Donovan ended his speech, Patricia stepped forward. The room reacted instantly. Gasps echoed. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Jamal tensed, watching carefully. Patricia stopped at the edge of the staging area, looking upward at Donovan as if asking permission. He gave her a long, unreadable look. Then he stepped aside. The ballroom fell into a near silence as Patricia faced the crowd. "I know many of you don't want to hear from me," she began, voice trembling slightly. "I would feel the same if I were in your position. But I came tonight because hiding hasn't healed anything. Denial hasn't made the truth smaller. It has only made the damage larger." Her hands shook visibly. "What I did was wrong," she said. "There's no excuse. I acted out of pride, fear, and the worst parts of who I became. And though I can say I never intended for things to escalate the way they did, intention doesn't erase harm." Some people shifted uncomfortably. Others watched with narrowed eyes. "I hurt someone who did nothing to deserve it," she continued. "I humiliated her publicly. And while I apologized to her privately, I understand now that accountability should not depend on comfort. It needs to be complete." The room remained still. Patricia turned slightly, her eyes finding Tiana. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Not because the world saw what I did, but because you carried the weight of it long before I had the courage to admit the truth. I was wrong." Tiana froze. Everyone watched her reaction. Jamal stayed close by, ready to intervene if needed. Patricia then addressed the entire room. "I can't rebuild trust overnight. I know that. But I intend to spend the rest of my life trying to understand how to be better, not just appear better." She lowered her hands and stepped back. The silence held for several intense seconds. Then a few people, mostly younger guests, clapped softly. Others remained quiet, unsure. The applause grew slowly, carefully, never turning thunderous, but becoming steady enough to show acknowledgement without absolution. Patricia didn't smile. She simply bowed her head once and walked off stage. Jamal felt the shift immediately. Something pivotal had just taken shape, though the room was still thick with tension. As the evening continued, guests spread into smaller groups, discussing what had happened. Some expressed sympathy, others skepticism. A few condemned Patricia outright, unwilling to accept any gesture she made. But the real turning point approached quietly. A well-known media figure, Clarissa Hale, approached Tiana directly. Clarissa was famous for her sharp commentary and large following. "Miss Carter," Clarissa said, "I'd like your thoughts on her speech." Tiana looked startled and glanced at Jamal. He gave her a small nod. The choice was hers. Tiana faced Clarissa. "I heard her," she said. "I accept her apology. But accepting isn't the same as forgetting. This isn't something healed in a night. I'm still working through the hurt she caused. And while I appreciate her words, healing requires ongoing effort, not a single moment." Clarissa's expression softened. "Thank you for being honest." Reporters nearby captured every word. But before Clarissa walked away, Tiana added, "I don't want her destroyed. I just want justice to mean something." That final sentence traveled quickly across the room. It struck a balance between grace and strength, one that showed the complexity of forgiveness without diminishing accountability. The crowd responded with mixed but respectful nods, and Clarissa left to publish her report. Across the ballroom, Leonard watched anxiously. Patricia stood near a fountain arrangement, breathing unevenly, clearly shaken from the emotional strain. Jamal approached her again. "You did something difficult," he said. Patricia's voice wavered. "Was it enough?" "That's not for you to decide," he replied. "What matters is that it was real." She nodded, tears building in her eyes. "Thank you." But before he could step away, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Real? That's what we're calling this now?" A woman wearing an emerald green gown stepped forward. Jamal recognized her immediately. Evelyn Grant, an influential businesswoman known for her ruthless approach. She glared at Patricia. "You humiliated an innocent woman publicly. You jeopardized your family's business. And now you show up here claiming change?" Patricia stiffened, but didn't respond. Evelyn turned to Jamal. "You're letting this pass?" "I'm letting truth speak for itself," Jamal replied evenly. Evelyn scoffed. "Weak leadership." The comment echoed sharply. The crowd murmured. Jamal held her gaze calmly. "Holding space for accountability isn't weakness." "Spoken like someone afraid to take decisive action," Evelyn snapped. Now the room felt dangerously on edge. Donovan moved forward slightly, as though preparing to step in, but Jamal lifted a hand subtly, signaling him to wait. "Evelyn," Jamal said, his tone firm but composed. "This event is about community and progress, not punishment or public humiliation. If you don't align with that purpose, you're welcome to excuse yourself." Gasps spread across the room. Evelyn's eyes widened with indignation. "You dare speak to me like that?" "I dare speak to anyone with clarity," Jamal answered. Evelyn opened her mouth to retort, but stopped when she noticed how many people were watching, judging, not just Patricia, but her aggressive interruption. Realizing she had overplayed her hand, Evelyn stepped back. "Enjoy your evening," she hissed. She walked away, leaving a wake of disapproval behind her. Patricia looked at Jamal with gratitude and disbelief. "Why would you defend me like that?" "I wasn't defending you," he said. "I was defending the integrity of this space. Growth requires room." She tried to take that away. Patricia nodded slowly, understanding. For the first time that night, the tension in the ballroom began to settle genuinely instead of teetering on the edge of chaos. But the climax wasn't over. Not yet. Later in the evening, after the dinner portion concluded, guests moved toward the outdoor terrace. The sprawling view of the city glittered in the distance, offering a brief reprieve from the intensity inside. Jamal wandered outside for a moment of fresh air. The night sky stretched above him, calm and quiet. But he sensed something shifting behind him. A figure approached, Leonard. His expression looked torn, frantic, regretful, and determined all at once. "Jamal," he said softly. I need to speak with you. Jamal nodded for him to continue. Leonard took a shaky breath. Our company is falling apart. Investors are withdrawing. Partners won't return our calls. We're days away from losing everything. I'm aware, Jamal said. Leonard hesitated. Your family could help us. You know that. That's true, Jamal replied. But why would we? Leonard's face tightened. Because destruction helps no one. Because my wife is trying. Because I'm trying. We were arrogant, yes. But we're not beyond rebuilding. Jamal studied him calmly. Your losses are consequences of choices you made long before the slap. Leonard nodded miserably. I know. Then face those consequences, Jamal said. Own them fully. We are, Leonard insisted. But we need someone willing to stand with us publicly. Someone who can stabilize the perception long enough for us to rebuild. Jamal raised an eyebrow. You want me to endorse you? Yes, Leonard said. Your voice carries weight. If people see that you believe we can change, they'll reconsider. We could recover. Jamal exhaled slowly. You're asking for a lot. Leonard stepped closer. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll put our entire company under review. I'll issue public accountability statements. I'll take the financial hit personally if I must. Just, please, give us a chance to heal the right way. The plea hung heavily in the air. Before Jamal could respond, another voice approached from behind. Tiana. She had followed him outside quietly, arriving just in time to hear the last part. Jamal turned to her, trying to read her expression. Leonard swallowed. Tiana, please, I'm asking both of you, not for forgiveness, just for a chance to rebuild. Tiana looked between the two men slowly. Her heartbeat quickened, and Jamal sensed the internal struggle playing out in her mind. Finally, she asked, Why should we help you now? Leonard's voice cracked. Because we can become better. Because your compassion could change more than just our company. It could change the entire culture around these situations. Tiana inhaled shakily. And what if we say no? Leonard closed his eyes briefly. Then we lose everything. Jamal watched Tiana's reaction carefully. Whatever she decided would influence his next move. After a long silence, she spoke softly. I don't want revenge. I don't want you destroyed. I just want change. Leonard nodded rapidly. Then let us prove ourselves. Tiana looked to Jamal. This is your decision too. Jamal held her gaze. Not without you. Her eyes softened, moved by his sincerity. After a long pause, she turned back to Leonard. If you want our help, you must agree to a full transparency initiative, independent review, community oversight, long-term accountability efforts, and you'll need to work with the programs we support. Leonard blinked, taken aback. That's a lot. That's what change looks like, Tiana said. He nodded slowly. Yes, we'll do it. Anything. Jamal added, and don't expect an endorsement tonight. Trust must be rebuilt gradually, through action. Leonard accepted this with visible relief. Thank you. Truly. He walked back inside, shoulders heavy but hopeful. When he left, Tiana and Jamal stood alone on the terrace. You handled that with grace, Jamal said. Tiana shook her head. I don't know what I'm doing. I just don't want to spread more hurt. That's what makes you remarkable, Jamal replied. She smiled faintly, then looked out at the city lights. Do you think they can really change? They can, Jamal said. But will they? That's up to them. Tiana nodded. I hope they do. The tension of the night eased slightly, though the weight of everything remained present. Inside, the gala began transitioning into the final portion of the evening, the part where connections formed, deals were quietly negotiated, and impressions solidified. But Jamal knew the night's pivotal moment had already unfolded. Patricia had faced the truth. The crowd had witnessed it. Tiana had shown strength and compassion, and Leonard had begun a path toward genuine accountability. The climax had not erupted in chaos, but in a collision of truth, vulnerability, and the difficult beginnings of change. As Jamal and Tiana walked back inside together, shoulder to shoulder, the ballroom buzzed with conversations that would shape the coming days. Jamal woke the next morning with the weight of the gala still settling across his thoughts. The night before had reshaped the landscape of the conflict, but nothing was resolved yet. The true consequences, long-term decisions, public reactions, and shifting alliances had only begun to reveal themselves. There was no calm after the storm, only the uneasy stillness that came before people decided what to do with what they had witnessed. News outlets had already released early coverage. Reports of Patricia's speech circulated rapidly, and clips of Tiana speaking with Clarissa Hale spread even faster. Social media buzzed with commentary ranging from praise to criticism, compassion to skepticism. Analysts debated whether the Whitmores could recover. Some believed their show of accountability marked a turning point. Others saw it as a carefully crafted attempt to regain favor. None of that could be ignored, but Jamal had expected it. He knew the world would react, and he had prepared himself. What mattered more were the new responsibilities now unfolding. By mid-morning, his father arrived at his home unannounced. Donovan stood at the doorway dressed in a crisp suit, carrying the presence of a man who had already been awake for hours and attended 3 meetings. "We need to talk," Donovan said. Jamal nodded and invited him in. They walked to the living room, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors. Donovan didn't sit right away. He paced slowly, processing his words before speaking. "You handled last night well," he said. "Better than I anticipated, even." "Thank you," Jamal replied. "But the fallout is still unfolding. That wasn't the end of anything." "No," Donovan agreed, "which is why we need a plan." Jamal leaned forward. "For the Whitmores?" "For everyone," Donovan clarified, "including us." Jamal's eyes narrowed slightly. "What are you thinking?" Donovan stopped pacing and looked at him directly. "Your actions last night positioned you as a stabilizing force in a volatile situation. People trust you more today than they did yesterday, and that carries both opportunity and responsibility. I didn't make those decisions to gain influence." "I know," Donovan said, "and that's exactly why people will listen to you now. They saw your integrity, they saw restraint, they saw leadership." Jamal absorbed this silently. "The Whitmores will need careful guidance," Donovan continued. "If they're serious about rebuilding, they'll require structure and oversight. You don't have to endorse them publicly, but their transformation will be tied to how you help shape it." Jamal hesitated. Tiana asked for a transparency initiative, community involvement, independent review. "And she was right," Donovan said. "Her approach will set the foundation for real accountability. You'll need to help implement it." Jamal nodded slowly. Donovan finally took a seat, his expression shifting into something more personal. You also need to take care of yourself. This situation is demanding. Make sure you don't lose your balance. Jamal gave a faint smile. I won't. Good, Donovan said as he stood again. Because this is only the beginning. When his father left, Jamal sat quietly, reflecting on what lay ahead. Later that afternoon, Jamal visited the Carter Group headquarters to meet with the team assigned to oversee the accountability program. The room was filled with legal advisors, community advocates, financial analysts, and policy experts. They reviewed documents outlining the expectations for the Whitmore Initiative. But the most important conversation of the day happened in a smaller room, with only Jamal and Tiana present. She arrived wearing a simple blouse and jeans, her expression thoughtful. You okay? Jamal asked. She nodded. Just processing everything. Yesterday felt big. It was, Jamal said. But this part might be even bigger. Tiana took a seat. Leonard called me this morning. He thanked me again. He sounded scared, but also sincere. He has a reason to be scared, Jamal said. They're facing consequences they can no longer avoid. Tiana looked at the documents spread across the table. Do you think this everything we're planning will work? It can, Jamal replied, but only if they commit fully. Tiana studied him for a moment. And what about you? You're carrying a lot right now. Jamal exhaled slowly. I can handle it. It's not the first time I've dealt with pressure. I know, she said softly. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have support. Her words struck him gently, settling somewhere he didn't realize needed reassurance. He met her eyes. I do have support. She smiled. Good. Over the next several days, the Whitmore Initiative began formalizing. Patricia started working closely with advisors who specialized in restorative practices. Leonard committed to transparency by opening their company's financial records for review. Their board of directors reluctantly agreed to cooperate. Public reaction remained mixed. Some praised the efforts. Others called it a publicity stunt. But the shift was happening, and the momentum slowly grew. Despite the progress, tensions remained. One major obstacle appeared in the form of Evelyn Grant. After her public embarrassment at the gala, Evelyn had become increasingly vocal in her criticism. She gave interviews questioning the sincerity of the accountability effort. She accused the Carter family of manipulating the narrative. She even implied that helping the Whitmores signaled weakness rather than justice. Her influence stirred unrest among several business leaders. One afternoon, she requested a meeting with Jamal. Against his better judgment, he agreed. They met at a private dining room inside an upscale restaurant near Peachtree Street. Evelyn arrived in a fitted navy dress, her posture straight and confident. Jamal, she greeted curtly. Evelyn, he replied. She sat across from him, crossing her legs. I'll get straight to the point. Your current direction is a mistake. How so? You're associating your name with people who damaged their credibility beyond repair. No one will blame you for stepping back. In fact, many would applaud the decision. Jamal remained calm. I'm not supporting them. I'm supporting accountability. Evelyn waved a dismissive hand. That's idealistic. This is business. Perception matters more than intention. I disagree, Jamal said. Intention guides change. Perception follows action. She leaned forward, tone sharpening. You're risking your influence. Everything you've built. Everything your father built. Nothing worth building should crumble because someone else chose growth. Evelyn scoffed. You're naive. No, Jamal said, voice steady. I'm consistent. Evelyn's jaw tightened. If you continue down this path, you'll make an enemy of me. And I don't lose. Jamal didn't flinch. This isn't a game, and I'm not interested in playing it. Evelyn glared at him before standing abruptly. Then you've made your choice. She walked away without another word. Jamal remained seated, calm outwardly, though he knew Evelyn's threat wasn't empty. She was influential and strategic, and she wouldn't hesitate to challenge him. This was no longer just about the Whitmores. It was becoming a broader battle over ethics, power, and the direction of Atlanta's business community. Later that week, a large community town hall was scheduled. The purpose was to discuss restorative justice, including the Whitmore Initiative. Dozens of people attended: business owners, families, students, activists, journalists. Tiana was one of the speakers. Jamal watched from the audience as she walked onto the stage. She looked calm but earnest. Thank you for being here, she began. I didn't ask for the attention that came from the incident I went through. But I know that when something painful becomes visible, it creates an opportunity, if we choose to use it. She spoke about dignity, about harm, about how accountability had to be active, ongoing, and sincere. She didn't embellish or dramatize. She didn't diminish her experience either. She spoke truthfully, and her voice carried wisdom. When she finished, the room erupted into applause. Jamal felt a surge of pride, not possessive, but deeply admiring. Afterward, Patricia approached the stage cautiously. Your words, Patricia said, voice fragile. They meant a lot. Tiana nodded gently. Then make them count by following through. I will, Patricia promised. The initiative strengthened. But Evelyn's opposition grew equally strong. She began rallying executives who disliked the idea of accountability structures. She framed it as a threat to business autonomy. She insisted that the Carter family was trying to control the corporate landscape. At a major board meeting attended by dozens of CEOs, Evelyn gave a fiery speech opposing the new direction. Her arguments were sharp and persuasive. When the time came for Jamal to respond, the room went silent. He stepped forward. Accountability isn't a threat, he said. It's protection. For businesses, for communities, for reputations. Pretending mistakes don't matter is what destroys legacies, not the act of confronting them. Some nodded. Others hesitated. Evelyn watched him closely, calculating. You can resist change, Jamal said. Or you can help shape it. I know which path leads forward. The board didn't vote that day, but the atmosphere had shifted. Jamal's voice carried weight. When the meeting adjourned, several executives approached him privately, expressing tentative support. Progress, even in small steps, continued, but the pressure intensified. One evening, Jamal returned home to find a car parked outside his gate, a luxury sedan he recognized. Leonard stepped out, visibly stressed. We have a problem, Leonard said without preamble. What happened? Evelyn is trying to convince our remaining investors to pull out unless we abandon the accountability initiative. She claims it shows instability. Jamal sighed. Of course she would. Leonard looked desperate. If they pull out, we're finished. That's not a reason to abandon accountability, Jamal said. I'm not saying it is, Leonard replied quickly. I'm committed. But we need help again. We need reassurance from someone people trust. Jamal paused. You're asking too soon. Trust takes time. I know, Leonard said, but time is the one thing we're running out of. Jamal leaned against the railing of his porch, thinking deeply. The situation required a strategic approach, not a rushed reaction. Let me speak with Tiana, he said finally. This affects her too. Leonard nodded gratefully. Thank you. When Leonard left, Jamal made his way to the community center. He found Tiana sitting alone in the gym, tying her shoes after a long day of activities. Everything okay? She asked when she saw his expression. Not exactly, Jamal said. We need to talk. He explained the situation. Tiana listened intently, her brow furrowing. Evelyn is pushing hard, Tiana said. She's afraid of losing the influence she's had for years. Exactly, Jamal said. But abandoning the initiative isn't an option. If we let business pressure override accountability, then everything we did becomes empty. Tiana nodded slowly. So what do you think we should do? We need to show investors that transparency isn't a liability, Jamal said. That it strengthens trust instead of weakening it. Tiana considered this. Maybe we need to take this to the community. If people show support publicly, investors might reconsider. That could work, Jamal agreed. Then let's organize something, Tiana said, determination forming. A forum, a panel, something accessible. If we lead the narrative with honesty, it can balance Evelyn's influence. Jamal looked at her with admiration. You're brilliant. She smiled shyly. I just want this to mean something. Together, they began planning. Within days, the Carter Group and the Community Center co-hosted a large public forum on restorative accountability. Hundreds attended. The event was broadcast online, reaching thousands more. Jamal spoke about leadership and responsibility. Tiana spoke about healing and dignity. Experts spoke about long-term community impact. The response was powerful. People voiced their support. Commentators praised the initiative. Investors watching from afar were moved by the authenticity of the discussion. Evelyn watched too. The next day, she released a statement accusing them of manipulating public sentiment. But her argument fell flatter than before. The tide was shifting. Later that evening, Patricia visited the community center unexpectedly. Tiana found her standing near the mural the kids had painted, the one filled with bright colors and hopeful expressions. Everything okay? Tiana asked gently. Patricia wiped her eyes. I saw the forum, and I realized something. What's that? That true accountability isn't about defending yourself, Patricia said. It's about learning how to be someone you're proud of. I'm finally starting to understand. Tiana softened. That's a good start. Patricia nodded slowly, looking both relieved and burdened. I'll keep going. I won't back down, even if people doubt me. Tiana placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. That's what matters. As days turned to weeks, the Whitmore initiative grew stronger. Community members participated. Company employees received training. Transparency reports were released publicly. Slowly, genuine change started unfolding. Meanwhile, Evelyn found herself increasingly isolated. Her opposition had become too rigid, too rooted in fear of losing power. Several of her former allies began distancing themselves. One afternoon, she requested another meeting with Jamal. This time, he declined. Instead, he sent a simple message. Accountability isn't the enemy. Fear is. Evelyn never responded. Momentum continued growing. Partnerships emerged between the Whitmores and several community organizations. The Carter Group created funds to support restorative efforts. Tiana became a respected voice in community leadership. Through it all, Jamal balanced the demands of public responsibility with his personal connection to Tiana. Their bond deepened quietly, through shared values, mutual respect, and long conversations after long days. One evening, after another successful community meeting, they walked outside together under the warm glow of streetlights. "You've changed so much," Tiana said softly. "Have I?" Jamal asked. She nodded. "You've grown into someone who carries people with care instead of force, and people see it." Jamal smiled. "You've changed me too." Tiana looked up at him, surprised. "Me?" "You," he said. "Your strength, your honesty, your compassion. You made me rethink what leadership can look like." She looked away shyly. "I was just trying to survive." "And in surviving," Jamal said, "you taught everyone around you how to rise." Her breath caught slightly, and she held his gaze for a quiet, intimate moment. Their closeness deepened. But amid all this progress, a turning point appeared. A major investor, a powerful one, scheduled a meeting with Jamal and Donovan. They wanted to discuss the future of the Whitmore initiative. This investor held immense influence. Their stance could determine whether the momentum continued or collapsed. The meeting was set at their corporate tower downtown. As Jamal prepared, Tiana approached him. "No matter what happens," she said, "you've already helped change so much." Jamal nodded. "But there's more to do." She squeezed his hand. "Then go do it." He looked at her with gratitude and warmth. Then he left for the meeting. This moment, this critical conversation, was where everything would tilt. Jamal woke the morning after the testimony with a sense of stillness he had not felt in many months. The sun was rising slowly over the Atlanta skyline, washing the buildings in a soft glow that suggested both closure and possibility. He stepped out onto the balcony of his penthouse, looking down at the roads where the city stirred awake. For all the tension and turmoil that had defined the recent weeks, this dawn felt gentler, as though the world itself sensed that the storm had begun to settle. He had not planned the ending of the case, nor had he imagined that the public would respond with such intensity. But once truth had been set in motion, it grew beyond his control. His testimony, the recordings, the statements from witnesses, everything had come together to reveal not only the truth about the slap, but also the deeper culture of misconduct within the Whitmore Company. It was not vengeance that had guided him, but accountability. And now, with the court rulings finalized and the investigations concluded, all that remained was the aftermath. As he stood quietly, his phone buzzed with several messages. Reporters requesting follow-up interviews, colleagues congratulating him, community members expressing gratitude. He glanced through them but did not respond. Today was not for statements. Today was for reflection. There was still one conversation he needed before he could fully move forward. A knock sounded at his penthouse door. He turned, already knowing who it would be. When he opened the door, Tiana stood there, dressed simply, her expression calm. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," he replied. "Come in." She stepped inside, looking around only briefly before focusing on him. "I didn't want to call. I felt this needed to be in person." I'm glad you came, he said. They sat in the living room, sunlight stretching across the polished floor between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Silence had never felt uncomfortable between them, but today it carried weight. Tiana drew a slow breath. It's really over, isn't it? It is, Jamal said. The court made its final ruling last night. The investigations are closed. The Whitmore Company will face restructuring, and Patricia's statement to the public was accepted. She'll complete the community programs as agreed. And Leonard, well, his resignation will probably be announced by the end of the week. Tiana nodded faintly. It's strange. I thought I'd feel more. Happiness, relief, something bigger. But all I feel is tired. Jamal leaned forward. Tiana, what you endured wasn't just an incident. It brought unnecessary scrutiny, judgment, and pressure. Anyone would feel worn down after carrying all that. She met his gaze. And you carried a lot too. That was my choice, he said. You never asked me to step in. Her eyes softened. Even so, thank you. For everything. Jamal gave a small smile. I told you before, supporting the people who matter is never a burden. Tiana held his gaze a moment longer before looking down at her hands. People are talking. About me. About us. About the case. Some say I only came forward publicly because of who your family is. Others say you only helped me for attention. People will always talk, Jamal said. But we know the truth. And the truth is we helped each other through something difficult. That's nothing to be ashamed of. She nodded again, looking relieved. And what about you? She asked after a moment. How do you feel now that it's done? Jamal looked out the window, gathering his thoughts. I feel steady, not triumphant, not angry, just steady. This wasn't about destroying anyone. It was about making sure harm wasn't ignored. And now that it's done, I think the best thing we can do is let the future be shaped by what we learned. Tiana considered his words. I'm proud of you. I hope you know that. He smiled. I'm proud of you too. The room felt warmer then, not because of the sunlight, but because the heaviness between them had begun to ease. After a moment, Tiana shifted slightly. I came for another reason too. There's something I need to tell you. Jamal felt a subtle tension rise. What is it? She hesitated, then spoke carefully. The board at the community center offered me a new position, a leadership role. They said after everything that happened, they saw how I handled the attention, how I kept showing up for the kids, and they think I can help guide the center through its next phase. Jamal's face brightened. That's incredible. You deserve it. Tiana exhaled, almost in relief. I want it, but it'll be a lot more responsibility, more hours, more challenges. And part of me worries that stepping into something bigger right after what happened might make it seem like I'm trying to capitalize on it. Tiana, Jamal said firmly, you earned that opportunity through your heart and your work. Not because of an incident. And anyone who can't see that doesn't understand who you are. Her shoulders relaxed. I needed to hear that. So you'll take the position? He asked. She nodded. I will. Jamal felt a genuine warmth spread through him. I'm proud of you, he said again. They shared a quiet smile before Tiana stood. I should head back. They're planning a meeting for later today. She paused. But Can we talk again soon? Not about the case or the fallout. Just talk. We can talk whenever you want, he said. With that, she left, and Jamal watched her go with a gentle sense of hope. He knew their connection would continue growing, carefully and naturally. There was no need to rush it. Later that afternoon, Jamal met his father for a final debrief. Donovan waited in his office, standing behind his desk with the kind of posture that revealed both pride and contemplation. You handled things well, Donovan said, as soon as Jamal entered. Better than many twice your age. Jamal nodded. I tried to be fair. You were, Donovan said, fair and firm. The Whitmore Company will rebuild, but they'll have to do so with integrity this time. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that bring real change. Jamal took a seat. I wasn't seeking to ruin them. And that's why you succeeded, Donovan replied. Because your goal was justice, not destruction. That's the difference between leadership and ego. Jamal didn't respond immediately, but his father's words settled deeply. After discussing the final legal transitions and upcoming projects, Donovan closed the folder on his desk and looked directly at his son. What's next for you? He asked. Now that this situation is behind you? Jamal thought for several seconds. I want to refocus on the mentorship program. Expand it. There's more work to be done, especially now that people are paying attention. I don't want this moment to only be about the conflict. I want it to be about growth. Donovan's expression softened. That's a good direction. You have my full support. Thank you, Jamal said. As he left his father's office, he felt a sense of forward motion. Not the adrenaline of conflict, but the calm momentum of purpose. Over the following weeks, the city slowly resumed its rhythm. The media coverage dimmed. New headlines replaced old ones. Life returned to its familiar patterns, but not without subtle changes. The community center expanded its outreach programs. Tiana stepped into her new leadership role with confidence, hosting workshops and coordinating resources with a passion that impressed even the board. She and Jamal met often, sharing conversations that drifted from work to personal hopes to quiet laughter. Their bond deepened gently, each recognizing that what connected them went beyond the turmoil they had weathered. The Whitmore family moved quietly in the background. Patricia completed her community service requirements without complaint, working at shelters, food banks, and education centers. Many watched her with skepticism, unsure whether her efforts came from sincerity or strategy. But over time, her consistent humility softened some of the judgment. She avoided publicity, instead focusing on reflection and change. Leonard withdrew from public view after resigning from the company. Some said he planned to leave Atlanta. Others said he might take time to rebuild his confidence. Jamal thought little about him, beyond the hope that he too would grow from the experience rather than repeat its mistakes. One day, several months after the ordeal, Jamal received an invitation from the community center to attend a celebration marking the launch of their new youth development initiative. Tiana had mentioned it casually, but seeing his name included among the honorary guests brought him a quiet sense of pride. When he arrived at the center, the walls were covered with vibrant murals, the courtyard filled with families, volunteers, and children eager to explore the new programs. Music played softly, and the air buzzed with conversation and joy. Tiana approached him with a warm smile. You made it. Wouldn't miss it, Jamal said. This is incredible. You did all this? Not alone, she laughed. But I guided the vision. He looked around proudly. It shows. She led him through the center, explaining each new program and its purpose: the coding room for teens, the literacy lounge for younger students, the garden project in the back courtyard. Every space reflected hope, growth, and opportunity. As they walked, several families approached Jamal, thanking him for his support over the years. He greeted each one with genuine warmth, humbled by the impact he had made without always realizing it. Later, the center held a brief ceremony in the courtyard. Tiana stepped up to the small stage, greeting everyone with confidence and grace. This center has always been a place for healing, for community, and for growth, she began. But today we start a new chapter, one shaped not by fear or challenges, but by the strength we gain from moving forward together. None of this would be possible without the support of so many people: volunteers, mentors, donors, and leaders who believe in the power of community. She glanced briefly toward Jamal, and some people whose guidance helped us through difficult times. People who showed us that justice doesn't have to come from anger. It can come from compassion and strength. Jamal felt a quiet warmth spread through him. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed into laughter and celebration, he and Tiana found a moment alone near the mural the teens had completed weeks earlier. "You spoke beautifully," Jamal said. "Thank you," she replied. She hesitated before adding, "You know, everything that happened changed me. Not just the pain of it, but the growth that came after. I'm stronger now, more sure of who I am, and a lot of that is because you stood by me." Jamal shook his head gently. "You found your own strength. I just reminded you it was there." She smiled softly. "Either way, I'm glad our paths crossed." Jamal met her gaze, and for a moment the noise of the celebration around them felt distant. "So am I," he said. They stood there quietly, the mural behind them filled with color and hope, the future wide and open before them. Not defined by conflict, but by the possibilities that grew from it. Outside, the sky shifted into early evening, warm and bright. The story that began with a moment of injustice had led them here, to healing, accountability, growth, and connection. There were no loose ends, no lingering battles to fight. Only the steady continuation of life moving forward. And for the first time in a long while, Jamal felt a true sense of peace as the world around him carried on with renewed purpose.